All right, y'all, welcome to the Scott Horton Show. I'm the director of the Libertarian Institute, editorial director of antiwar.com, author of the book Fool's Errand, Time to End the War in Afghanistan, and the brand new Enough Already, Time to End the War on Terrorism. And I've recorded more than 5,500 interviews since 2003, almost all on foreign policy, and all available for you at scotthorton.org. You can sign up for the podcast feed there, and the full interview archive is also available at youtube.com/Scott Horton Show. All right, you guys, introducing Gabriel Shipton. He's Julian Assange's brother on the line from France. How are you doing, Gabriel?
Yeah, I'm well, mate. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to talk to you again. It was nice to bump into you at the LP National Convention there a few weeks ago in D.C.
Yeah, that was great. I really enjoyed being there. Very supportive crowd. A lot of love for Julian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the name of the documentary? Because I think people can see on YouTube where you and your father, John, and myself all did that presentation down at the Alamo Draft House on South Lamar. I think that's on YouTube somewhere, but I got to remember the name of the documentary so people can Google it.
Yeah, it's Ithaca, Ithaka. Yeah,
that's
Ithaca.
Right. I'm sorry, man. I got what Biden's got. I used to remember everything, but now not so much. But yeah, Ithaca. Great documentary about the fight to free Julian Assange. And hey, it worked. He's free. So, I mean, go ahead and tell me everything on your mind first here. What's going on? Is he home safe? He's with his wife and kids now back in Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Scott. He touched down yesterday in Canberra, which is the capital city of Australia, after a really long flight. He had to fly from London Stansted to stopover in Bangkok, and then to the North Mariana Islands, an island of Saipan, which was a US district that is very close to Australia, and that's where he put in the plea deal before a judge, and the judge accepted it and sentenced him to time served, and he was a free man, and then back on a plane and 6 hours to Canberra, and now he's in an undisclosed beachside location in Australia. He's gone for a walk on the beach and slept in a real bed. It's unbelievable. I mean, I still don't think I'll fully believe it until I'm back at home holding him in front of me and can touch him and can see him and smell him. So it's pretty surreal. Yeah.
Well, that's great to hear that he's having a good time. He certainly deserves a vacation after all of this. It's funny. I was talking with some friends about sort of the first impression of the pictures of him. I was like, oh, well, at least they haven't been starving him. He's got a bit of a gut there. But then I thought, oh, wait, no, you know what? That's because they had him locked in a cell the size of a parking lot. And so he couldn't possibly exercise. So I'm sorry, a parking space. So he couldn't exercise. And so that was why he's a bit out of shape. But anyway, so glad to see he's home. So now first of all, business. You got to help me get him on the show as soon as possible. I know Tucker flew all the way across the world, so I'm sure he'll probably get first digs. And Glenn Greenwald is Glenn Greenwald, but I want to interview the guy soon. I first talked to him back in 2010. He knows me. So
yeah. I remember when we did that show with you in Austin. John was talking to Julian, and he said that you've got an unbelievable archive of interviews. You're definitely on his radar for sure, Scott. And I'll put in a good word for you.
Great,
100%. But I'm not sure when he's going to.
Oh yeah, let him surf
back in the public. And
I understand. I totally understand. No pressure at all. And yeah, in fact, it was cool because what your dad said was, Julian says that you've done more than 5,000 interviews, which is true. And it's 6,000 now, but still like the 5,000 mark was just a couple of years ago. So he would have already been in Belmarsh by the time I got to 5,000. So that means, I guess, that he's been listening to the show in prison there. I didn't realize they let him have podcasts, but that's really cool to know that he listens to the show or to
infer that he does there.
Yeah,
So, hey,
yeah.
Julian.
Well, I don't know how he would have. I mean, sometimes Stella or my dad will play him some podcast over the phone.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, so that's how he would listen to podcasts while he was inside the prison.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of loss of fidelity in the audio quality there, man, but still good enough. And anyway, whatever. I hope that's true, but it's okay if it's not. But I'm just glad to know he's free. So now, so here's what seems like an important detail, Gabriel. Could you address exactly what it was that he pleaded guilty to? Because this is something that everybody's really been on pins and needles about for a very long time.
Essentially, he pleaded guilty to journalism, to communicating with a source, publishing classified information, possessing classified information, one charge under the Espionage Act. And it was the claiming of that there's a coordinated conspiracy between him and Chelsea Manning to publish publish information in the public interest. It's what he's pled guilty to. It's just journalism. It's what journalism what journalists do every day.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you read the plea deal, that's exactly what he's pled guilty to.
But so he did not plead guilty to all the charges in the superseding indictment, only to the things that he actually did, which weren't really crimes, but things that he actually did, not the things that they accused him of that were lies, like he had helped Manning hack into the computers and all of this stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so the hacking charge, which was always bogus, like they had to take that out because they have absolutely no evidence to prove that Julian even attempted to hack into anything, or that it even was communicating with Chelsea Manning in regard to that allegation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was totally gone. They boiled it down to one Espionage Act charge, which just says that all the other charges were just totally superfluous. They'd overbaked this indictment totally. And they were willing to settle for one Espionage Act charge, and that outlined what they call the criminal conspiracy, which is a noble conspiracy between a journalist and publisher and a source to publish information in the public interest. And then he got the deal was it would be for time served. And so the judge agreed to that sentencing recommendation and gave him time served. And interestingly, the judge in the Mariana court said that there was nobody actually harmed. They could not find anybody harmed by these leaks,
Mm-hmm.
contrary to the claims of those at the State Department and others. The judge admitted that there was nobody that they could find that was harmed, and also in the plea deal, they actually outlined that they could not find any victim of this so-called crime.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's so important because, we always would cite the judge in the Manning case and also the confessions of former Secretary of Defense Gates. But now you're telling me that the government stipulated in the documents here and the judge also agreed that no one was harmed in this leak.
Yeah, that's right. The judge agreed, and I think the judge was almost sympathetic with Julian. It sounded like that. There's a lot of transcript online, which people should check out.
Great!
I think some of it on Stella's Twitter account from the judge.
Okay, I'll make sure we get that up at antiwar.com pronto.
Yeah. So the judge sounded, almost sympathetic to Julian and Julian's plight. Probably because they made them come into the court. I don't know how busy they are on the island of Saipan. There were certainly a lot of people there who were pretty surprised to see Julian Assange rocking up at that courthouse.
Yeah, well, it's so funny that America has a federal courthouse in Saipan over there in the Marianas, which isn't that where that trench is over there on the other side of the planet? What the hell? It's
Yeah,
so
that's right. I mean,
funny.
there's lots of military bases there too. Guam, that Guam area. So it's pretty
It,
heavily developed in terms of the military industrial complex.
I was like, Saipan, does that even exist anymore? And then I realized I was thinking of Siam, which is like Thailand, right? The king of Siam or whatever. Like something that Mr. Burns would refer to on The Simpsons because he's from the 19th century, you know? All right. Uh, okay. So look, it's important, and I'm going to try to get him on the show. I'm not sure what's happening, but old Greenwald, he's a lawyer, and I heard him explain, a constitutional lawyer back in his previous life, and I heard him explain that a plea deal cannot set a precedent. But there's still a pretty bad chilling effect here in a sense that this will make. There's no legal precedent set here, but this would be the first time, I guess, that the government got away with punishing someone under this broad of an interpretation of the Espionage Act. So it does set us up for further squabbles in the future here.
Yeah, it hasn't been argued in the courts. The prosecution, they made this unprecedented indictment, and eventually, I guess, they in terms of getting a conviction, they won. I mean, did you see James Clapper? James Clapper came out and said, "Oh, this is the result that we were looking for. Julian wouldn't have got much time anyway. We've got a conviction, and we should be happy. We should be happy about that." So
yeah, he said he's paid his dues, which sounds like, yeah, in other words, pre-trial punishment, that they just got away with inflicting all this on him without the trouble of having to go to trial and win a conviction.
That's exactly right.
Terrible.
Hey guys, I've had a lot of great webmasters over the years, but the team at expanddesigns.com have by far been the most competent and reliable. Harley Abbott and his team have made great sites for the show and the Institute, and they keep them running well, suggesting and making improvements all along. Make a deal with expanddesigns.com for your new business or news site. They will take care of you. Use the promo code SCOTT and save $500. That's expanddesigns.com. Man, I wish I was in school so I could drop out and sign up for Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom instead. Tom has done such a great job on putting together a classical curriculum for everyone from junior high schoolers on up through the postgraduate level. And it's all very reasonably priced. Just make sure you click through from the link in the right margin at scotthorton.org. Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom. Real history, real economics, real education.
People say to me, Scott, how do you get so much work done all the time? Coffee. It helps keep me from falling asleep. And it tastes really good because I get it from Moondo's Artisan Coffee at moondosartisancoffee.com. Moondo's is kind of the anti-Starbucks in that their coffee tastes real good. They have lots of great choices, representing all kinds of regions, blends, and flavors. I'm drinking the Ethiopian presently. Hey, wait, also, do you like saving money on good tasting coffee? Right now you can get 10% off and help support this show if you just go to moondosartisancoffee.com/Horton. Find the link and the QR code in the margin at scotthorton.org. That's moondosartisancoffee.com/Horton. Clapper, he's the worst. Don't get me started. I got a whole list. Okay, now another part of the plea deal was he had to agree to delete the WikiLeaks, or at least, no, not everything, but just the Manning leak from wikileaks.org. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about that actually. I haven't
No.
looked into that part, but you could be right. I would have to just double check that.
Okay.
He's free to travel. He's free to travel, around the world. Obviously, the United States is out of bounds unless he can apply to enter the United States, though. Apply for a visa, but he has no restrictions on his travel. He has no restrictions on speaking to the public or any sort of things that he might do in the future. He cannot be prosecuted for anything before the date that this plea was entered. So any of the work that he's done with WikiLeaks cannot be prosecuted, or he cannot be indicted for any of that work now. So
Yeah.
I think that's in terms of for Julian, I think that is very, very that is a positive thing now that he doesn't have any of that hanging over his head, at least from the U.S. jurisdiction.
Man, that's got to be such a relief. I mean, they have been after him for so long. And was it WikiLeaks or it was somebody else that posted the documents that finally showed the pressure that the Americans put on the Swedes? They're like, what do you mean you let him go? You dummies, this was our chance. You go and you pursue this, right?
Yeah, that's right. Those documents that expose I guess what you'd call corruption between the Swedish prosecuting service and Crown prosecuting service. Don't get cold feet, they said, I think
Yeah.
was the quote from the email. This is don't get cold feet. This is about more than a usual extradition, don't you know? When the Swedes were trying to pull out of the investigation, because it was always a preliminary investigation. Julian was never. It was the longest running preliminary investigation in Swedish history. Julian was never charged, so it was a sort of another corruption of the legal system to keep Julian detained. And a lot of the emails from the Crown Prosecuting Service, from the UK prosecutors, there was a big Freedom of Information Act effort, and they had to come back and said, oh, these emails have all been deleted by accident. And they were all the emails relating to Keir Starmer, who is now the Labour candidate for Prime Minister, who looks like he'll win the election. He was Crown Prosecutor at the time, and all these emails that got deleted were in relation to his trips to Washington when he was Crown Prosecutor, when Julian was kept in the Ecuadorian embassy. I think it's quite revealing of what might have been in those emails, the fact that they mysteriously disappeared.
Well, maybe one day they'll end up on WikiLeaks.org. Has he told you? Do you know I think we all just assume he plans on taking the helm again, right? There's nothing in the plea deal that says he promises never to run WikiLeaks anymore. So presumably he's the director again, and it's on, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think, Kristen Harrison's still the editor-in-chief. I'm not sure what Julian plans to do, but there's nothing stopping him from going and doing WikiLeaks again. I haven't had a chance to
Man,
really
what a great day. This is great.
I haven't really chatted to him about it, but I'm sure, he's devoted his life to, bettering mankind and using technology to help humanity, and he's always stood up for justice, and he's always had this voice that people want to hear from him. People want to know what he thinks about everything, about a range of subjects, and he has that impact on the world, and I don't think that's going to change. He's definitely going to keep fighting the good fight in one way or another. But we're all waiting to see what form that takes. But he's got to get better first. He's got to take some time now to just come to terms with what life is now. He's much older than when he first went into detainment 13 years ago. The world has changed. The world is a different place. I was listening to his lawyer, Jennifer Robinson, say that when they were at the airport, he said, "Oh, I haven't seen a horizon in 13 years." And I thought, bloody hell, the things that Julian has to come to terms with after being locked up for so long, he's going to need a bit of time to get better.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Totally understandable. All right, and by the way, on if it's right that he really has to delete the Manning files, well, all those are out to the world anyway, and of course, there's torrent files on the Pirate Bay and so forth that can never be stopped. I don't know exactly how to find those, but I'm making sure. I'm already talking to my guy that runs my websites for me. We're going to make sure if in fact they're deleted, we're downloading everything now and making sure that if they are in fact deleted, then we'll just set up libertarianinstitute.org/WikiLeaks/Iraq/Afghanistan/Gitmo files and /State Department cables, and just make sure that all that stuff is still available for everyone. I know I've actually had a lot of trouble looking for mirrors of WikiLeaks because sometimes they've had some technical difficulties and I'm looking for files that I can't find and things. And I think there was a kind of a big fad of putting up mirrors of WikiLeaks, back 10 years ago, and most of those cease to exist now. So we'll definitely need some. I'm sure 100 people got on it immediately as soon as that news came out that was part of the deal. So I'm sure it'll be fine one way or the other. But People should really know. It gets lost in the story a lot of times, but this is the most important leak of the century. All the stuff in those State Department cables and the Iraq and Afghan war logs and the Guantanamo files too is just huge. And there's so many
incredible.
important stories that are traceable back to the State Department cables, as they're known, or the WikiLeaks files. There's so much that we deserve to know. There's important truth about the sins of our government that came out in that. It was the greatest thing, for Manning and Julian both to have done that. So, people should take a look through those files. It's incredible the way the State Department weenies talk to each other a lot of the time. And now, I'm sorry, I know you're in a hurry and got to go. So let me just ask you real quick then about these documentaries that you're making that have you in France right now.
Well, I'm at a documentary market in France. I've got a few projects. I can't really talk about them, unfortunately. One's about independent journalism and the way, this flowering of independent journalism, like people like your show and many others, that happened, I think, as part of Julian and WikiLeaks' legacy, really, that independent journalists were able to access the WikiLeaks archive. They were able to do reporting in a sort of decentralized way and use the tools of the internet to put out their podcasts, put out their blogs, tweet and connect directly with audiences. And I think it's a really important story, and we want to put it in a movie so that journalism students and younger folk out there can see that there's a viable future for them outside of corporate media and outside of the legacy media, which is a corrupting influence on the information landscape, if you ask me. So that's just a brief insight into one of the projects we're working on, but I can't say much more.
That's great, man. That's great. It's good to see that you've been radicalized by the whole situation and joined the independent media yourself here, man. We're very happy to have you.
Yeah, that's right, Scott.
Assange and company over there at the WikiLeaks. All right. Well, listen, congratulations. And please pass on my congratulations to Julian. And so happy to hear all the great news, Gabriel, and really appreciate your time on the show, man.
Yeah, cheers. And talk to you again soon.
The Scott Horton Show, Anti-War Radio, can be heard on KPFK 90.7 FM in LA, APSradio.com, antiwar.com, scotthorton.org, and libertarianinstitute.org.